Hey everyone, welcome to the fifth talk from the Hashnode Bootcamp Season 3. Are you excited to be here? Let us know into the comments. This season's bootcamp focuses on building an effective personal brand as a developer. We have a lot of amazing speakers like you already know, from which you can learn a lot. We are really excited to host this edition and to learn from these amazing developers and people. Are you too? Let us know into the chat. Without further ado, I'll hand it off to Edidiong to talk a little bit more about Hashnode, about us, and then we'll kick it off.
Awesome, thank you. Welcome everyone to today's session. My name is Edidiong Asikpo. I work as a developer advocate at Hashnode. I love writing technical articles, building developer communities, and contributing to open source. I'm hosting this session with my awesome friend and colleague, Catalin, who also works in the developer relations at Hashnode. Catalin loves to share insightful tech content on his YouTube channel and blog, and in his spare time loves to play PC games. If you don't already know this, Hashnode is a free dev blogging platform that lets you create a blog, map to your domain for free, and also get readership from the developer community. If you have any questions during this talk, click on the questions icon at the bottom right corner of your screen, type in the question and click OK. After the end of the session, we're going to answer each of those questions. We'll try to answer all of the questions, and if we can't, we'll answer the top questions that are given. And don't forget to share your learnings and whatever you've learned from this bootcamp on Twitter or any other social media platform of your choice using the Hashnode Bootcamp hashtag. We'll be giving away Hashnode t-shirts to the top tweets and top comments we see online.
Okay, as I already said, this bootcamp is about building an effective personal brand, and we have 6 speakers, only 2 speakers left. It was over 14 days, and we learned a lot from these people. Now, the speaker is Annie, who is a developer, front-end developer, multidisciplinary designer. I hope I pronounce it correctly. My English pronunciation is not that good. She'll talk about building an effective developer portfolio, and believe me, you'll enjoy it. She knows what she's talking about, and don't believe me, you can look at her portfolio. I will paste it in the comments or in the chat, whatever. She's present on Twitter, Instagram, and GitHub, and I highly recommend to follow her. She has lots of great content. But enough talk from my side, and let's welcome Annie on the stage. Please make some noise in the chat, and let's give her a warm welcome. I'm gonna go now and let her do the talk.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thanks, Catalin. Hey, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here, and I hope that you've been enjoying the presentation so far. Okay. Can you all see my screen? I hope so. I can't see it, but I'm trusting that you can see it. Okay. So thanks for having me. My name is Annie, and let's talk about what we're going to do today. So this is an intro. I'm just going to share a little bit about myself and what we're going to cover in today's session. So as Catalin said, my name is Annie, and I have a Bachelor of Arts in Multimedia Design. Oh, I'm also known as Annie Bombeni. So if you see that around me as well. I have a Bachelor of Arts in Multimedia Design from Australia, and I worked in Australia for several years, as well as in England, doing design, like web design, animation, some branding, graphics, all the usual stuff. And then I decided to be a poor English teacher in Japan. So I was doing that for several years before I transitioned to a developer, and I did a front-end development bootcamp and I finished that in summer of 2019 in Canada. So I'm currently in my second role as a web developer, and I'm a UX UI developer in a small startup in Toronto. So why am I here, and why did I pick this topic? So I've been doing portfolios for a while. My first portfolio, I'll take you on a journey. My first portfolios were physical portfolios. I carried a ring binder like this, an A3 ring binder, and I had like sketches and paintings and artwork in presentation photos, carrying them in art and design to art and design interviews. Maybe a few of you might remember these. So I don't have exact pictures of the works I used to have, but here are some examples of the kind of stuff that would have gone into these portfolios at the time. So from over here, these are all kind of just traditional medium work like painting, Copic markers and charcoal, stuff like that. So after this, I decided to get into design, and my portfolio became it became digital, but digital CD-ROM. And this is a screenshot from my graduation CD-ROM graduation portfolio. Static had a bunch of stuff from my illustrations, branding, graphic design, photography. Interactive were my interactive digital experiences. Motion, my motion graphics and film and animation stuff. And web was like really simple websites that I used to create. So here are some examples of kind of the stuff that I would have had in this portfolio. The top one was an interactive experimental project. The one below was a rotoscope animation of an Australian poet that I really liked at the time. And the top one above my portfolio screenshot is a Rapunzel interactive narrative. That was really fun to work on. So all of these early portfolios, my work finally moved online to these various iterations to where we are today. And
Hi, Annie, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, your slides are not showing again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Failed to publish screen share.
Oh, could be some issues from Hermes. Maybe try canceling and like redoing it again.
Okay. So did you guys miss a lot of? Did you miss a lot of the other slides?
I know it showed at first, then at some point it stopped showing. So maybe we could just go one more slide back, and that should be fine.
Okay, I'm just going to go back a little bit. So these were my physical portfolios to interactive CD-ROM, and then here I am. I'm finally online. Okay, so this was my very first portfolio. It was built in pure HTML and CSS, no JavaScript. I probably coded on Notepad or something like super lame like that. And then the second one was a WordPress site. I decided that I wanted to, have a CMS. So I looked into WordPress. I didn't know how to do anything at the time because my coding skills were literally just HTML, CSS. So I bought a theme and then I heavily customized it with my very, very poor CSS skills at the time. And the final version, the latest version of my portfolio is the one that I completed about 2 years ago as my final bootcamp project. So I coded this one. I designed and coded it in a week because it was my final bootcamp project and that was all we had time to do. It's mostly just HTML and CSS, but there is a little bit of JavaScript. And this time I built it in VS Code and I used version control GitHub. So that's pretty cool. So I'm sharing all this with you to give you a brief background of my experiences building portfolios over the years. And we're going to cover some of the takeaways that I've learned during all these iterations. So in this session, my aim is for you to know exactly what a portfolio is and the benefits of having one. We'll talk about how to get started and what kind of things that you should include. I'll give you some practical tips and knowledge that you can take away. But most of all, I really hope that you be inspired and had fun at the end. This is a high-level talk. I'm not going to get into very technical details about, domain names, SEO, how to deploy to provide a hosting provider. I just really want to get you inspired and thinking about your portfolio. So let's get started. So what's a portfolio and why do we need one? So I'd like to open this section with a question. How do we convey what we're about, our value, and our worth to complete strangers on the internet? What is a portfolio? Why do we need one? Okay, so it's pretty clear we're not talking about stock portfolios or real estate portfolios here. To me, a work portfolio is a compilation of materials that exemplifies like your personality, your skills, your interests, your qualifications, maybe even education. It provides insights to who you are, your work ethic, and demonstrates the scope and quality of your experiences and abilities. So for writers, a portfolio may show an article, show a collection of articles and stories. For photographers, it might be a gallery of photographs. For designers, it would be branding, logos, designs, and everything. And for the purpose of today's workshop, we're specifically talking about developer portfolios. So what are two big reasons people have portfolios? The first one is to get a job. Like, you need a portfolio. I highly suggest you have a portfolio to get a job. People want to look at your work, and this is where you show people your work. A second reason to have a portfolio is to build your personal brand, as this whole couple of weeks have been about, and to increase your online presence. A portfolio is really, really good at doing this because, like I mentioned, it shows the world who you are and all the things that you care about and you do. And I'm going to be really cheeky. I'm going to add a third reason. I think another reason to build a portfolio is because it's fun. Okay, it's also frustrating because we all know what coding is like, but you're flexing your creative muscles. You're building something literally with, zeros and ones. You're learning, you're trying new things. And also you're creating a very, very valuable digital asset for yourself. At the end of the day, you can say, I built this. It's live for the world to see. And you're going to make your parents really proud as well, hopefully. So maybe you're still not convinced. I like to argue that if you are a developer and you build things on the internet, then you should definitely have a portfolio to showcase the things that to showcase your web development work. It's more than a collection of your work. It is your work. A portfolio is your work. And if you're a backend developer and you're thinking, I have a GitHub account, I'm hired for like the non-visual code that I write, I don't need a portfolio. I mean, you're not wrong. You don't need a portfolio, but like, I don't need that third donut either, but I want one. And remember, a portfolio doesn't just showcase your work. It shows people who you're about and who you are and what you're about. So if you have a website, that's going to level up your credibility a notch, and you're going to stand out time against the developer who doesn't have one. So why not choose to do that? Why not choose to put yourself on a really good foot? So let's get building. I hope you're all convinced. How do we build an effective portfolio? The first question we want to ask ourselves is, who are we building for? We might be tempted to think that we're building for other developers, or, in some respects, you're right. But if you look at work very specifically, you're also building for non-technical people who will look at your portfolios first, such as recruiters and hiring managers. So you want to make sure that your portfolio is optimized for this. You might think it's okay to just throw something together, but let me tell you, first impressions count. So there is a reason why design and UX and UI and marketing are all so important. But before we discuss those things, let's talk about 3 core things that I think should go into a base portfolio. The first one is your about. So I would argue that this is one of the most important but underrated pages or sections of your website. It's actually often one of the very first stops that people go when they land on a website. So, think about how you browse. How often do you click the about link of a company or a personal website? I know I do this quite often. Like, I want to see the site. I want to see who built this site. What is this company? Who is this person? What do they value? What do they care about? I want to find out more about them. As humans, we're social beings, and I'm interested in looking to connect and find out more about you. And if people want to work with you and they are looking to connect, and make sure that you have an about section. So yeah, it's a great chance to, like I said, to show people who you are, talk about who you are, what matters to you, what do you do, and how you do it. And another tip is, I really highly recommend that you include a photo. So psychology tells us that we like looking at other people's faces. It helps build that connection and adds personality to your website. It also reminds people that you're a real human, especially if you're looking to get hired and not just a useless developer behind the screen. So if you're a little bit shy, you can work up to this. You might have like an avatar or like a photo that doesn't show like your full face or something. But I do highly, highly recommend it. And Just a note, your about section isn't the same thing as your bio or your hero text. And let me show you an example. So this is an example from Taylor Ho, and this is his hero text. It's very simple. My name is Taylor Ho, and I build things on the internet. And this is his about section, where he adds a lot more information about himself. He adds some personality, and he talks about things that he's doing. And if we are going to build, well, as we're working through our about page or about section, let's talk about things to talk about or like that you should consider. The first thing is decide whether you want to refer to yourself in first person or third person. First person is I, me, we. This is generally speaking more personal. And the third person is Annie, she, her. And this is a lot more professional. For a personal website and to look for a job, especially if you're job hunting, I would highly recommend that you use the first person. The next thing to add in your about is you can talk about what are your backgrounds, your values, your expertise, and your goals. A few questions that you can think about is, how did you get to where you are today? What are your credentials? What are your formal jobs? So for me, I have a Bachelor of Arts in Multimedia Design. For my jobs, I have a lot of them. I have like various, design jobs and like some really random ones and an English teacher and stuff like that. Talk about, what you get excited about and what you love doing. And also something very important is what value can you offer, the reader who might be your potential employer? Like, what can you show? Like, why would they want to hire you? What can you give them? Give them reasons they should hire you. And the last tip is make it personal to make it a bit more memorable. You can write things like, when I'm not coding, I like to play with my dog, play games, eat donuts. Or you can find me doing XYZ. You can find me going hiking on my days off, things like that. So these are a couple of little, things that you can use. And let me show you a couple of good examples of some about pages that I found. This page is by Brendan. He's from Toronto, and he talks about him being a drummer turned web developer. So already we're seeing that he has a background in design, and he talks about a bunch of different things that he likes doing. It's very, very personal. If there's only one thing that I would change about this, about section, is that I would probably break up the wall of text into separate paragraphs just to make it a bit more readable. The next one is Jenny. Jenny is also from Toronto. And you can see that she's added a couple of different photos about herself. She has her hero banner, also serves as a bit of an about me. And yeah, she loves like exploring the world and looking for the next best sushi joint. So lots very, very personal about section. The next part that we're going to look at is your projects and your work. Arguably, this is a very, very important part. So the first thing that you want to do is be selective about the work that you put in your portfolio. It's quality over quantity. If you put something that you're, subpar about, know that your worst work will bring down the overall quality of your portfolio. So be selective. Revisit and clean up your old projects. When you're choosing projects to put in your portfolio, think about projects that demonstrate a range of skills, of technologies, and project for variety. For someone just getting started, here are some good ideas, especially for development. You can have like a Photoshop conversion or a website clone. You can, like build a Twitter clone. A JavaScript game is a really good one to show your logic skills. A simple CRUD app, and CRUD stands for create. Oh, always forget the second one. Create something, update and destroy. And then throw something in that uses an API as well. So those are some really good projects that you can put in. Someone can put anyone knows what the R in CRUD stands for, like please put it in the chat, by the way. So next thing is link to your live projects and your code. So you want your live projects for the potential, recruiters to look at, but you want your code for like the developers to look at as well. So do both of these. And how many projects do we recommend? I recommend having a minimum of 3 projects. But if you're just getting started and you're super excited about making a portfolio and you only have one, you know what, put that one in, like put it in, proud of it. You can always add more later. So here's a couple of examples of some really nice work portfolios I really like. The first one is by Sharon. She has a kind of a 4-grid layout where if you go and hover or click on the photos that she showcases her skills. There's a brief description of the app or the project that she's talking about, and you can see it live, and it's also on GitHub. The next one is by Raul. Sorry, I hope I'm saying your name right if you're listening. He has a much bigger portfolio. He's been working for a little while, but on his main homepage, he has just 3 that he shows, like that he's highlighting. And then if you through, then they'll have a lot more a lot more examples. And once you click through as well, you see that he also has a link to his live project and a link to his GitHub as well. The third part of this section, this part that is really important, is your contact page. You want to make it very easy for people to contact you if you want them to. If you don't want to, that's okay. But I highly recommend making it very easy for people to contact you. So if you have social links, add them in. They don't specifically have to be in your contact section. They could be like somewhere else on your page. But if you have social links, well, add them in. They add like a little bit of extra to your contact and gives people another way to look for you and find out information about you. Here's a bit of a controversial one. Should you add your resume? Honestly, it's up to you. I've seen it done both ways. Some people really like doing it to make it really easy for recruiters to download it or for people to just look at it, but other people don't. For me personally, I do not share my resume as a downloaded link, but I do have a note on my website that says, if you want my resume, please email me and I'll send it over to you. But it's up to you. Like I see a lot of people just post their resume online, and this is fine, like a PDF or something. If you wanted to, you could also have a link to a page, like a HTML page or something that has all the information about your qualifications and the work as well. So that's another option you can do. And if you want to use a form, which I'm doing for your Contact Me, my tip is to use an API to manage it. So some of the ones that you can use include FormSpree, Formic, JotForm, FormStack, Woohoo. There's a lot, but I like FormSpree. I use FormSpree for my personal site, so I'm going to recommend that one because that's something that I'm familiar with. It's very easy to use. You just put it in and it's done for you. So maybe you got up to this stage, and those are the 3 things: about, work, and contact. And you're thinking, I don't know, this sounds a bit too simple. Well, let me show a very simple portfolio using these 3 things that forgot to mention. These are the examples of some contact pages. This is by Brittany. She personalized it with a little thing that says, please send pictures of your dog, which is really cute. So I think she's using FormSpree for this or something very similar as well. And this one is Pavel. He does not have a form, but that big button there that says get in touch opens a mail and email provider, so you can get in touch directly. They both also have added their social links and social stuff to the contact section of their webpage as well. So, okay, now 3 things, just to recap, is your about, your work, and your contact. Maybe these 3 things look too simple, but let me show you something that I found that I think is a really good example of it. Dijon's portfolio is literally his about, his work, and contact. You can get really far with just these 3 things, and I highly want to just encourage you to do this. But maybe, you want to go above and beyond. What are some other things that you can add? Let's talk about these. The first one is you can talk about your skills, your tools, and the technology you use very specifically. The second one, add your blogs and your technical writing. Obviously, we're here on a Hashnode blog bootcamp, so I hope you have a blog here. And number 3, if you are a bit later on in your career, or even earlier, and you have examples of media appearances, talks, and awards. Add these in. They all give you extra credibility as well. And the last part is testimonials and companies or clients that you've worked with. If you've done any kind of work for anybody, like even a family member, ask them to write something nice for you. Social proof is one of the most powerful tools at your disposal that you can use. That's why reviews are such a big thing. We tend to put a lot of value in what other people say. And if you can add a picture as well, that will just bump it up a notch. So yeah, I highly recommend that you have testimonials from people. People who have said nice things about you. And let's look at some examples. So this is how Becky shows her skills, and a lot of people do this. It's really quite nice. She's a she was a graphic designer by trade, and she's made a really beautiful, delightful portfolio where she's put all the icons of the tools that she's used and the technologies, and when you hover over them, they show you what it is. Another way to do this as well is Jacek. I hope I'm saying his name wrong. Jack basically has a whole different section just to talk about his skills and his experiences. You can see these are the technologies that he's worked with, and he's also got in the front page as well a similar thing to what Becky had, where he shows all the list of icons. So just some ideas. For blog, when I'm talking about blogs, in this specific section, I'm talking about blogs that you post on your site. And maybe you're all familiar with Sarah Dresner. She does a lot of stuff for CSS Tricks. And she's got a really nice website where she has all her technical writing and blog. It's very easy to find and it's very nicely done. So this is a real example of a personal blog on her personal website. Talks and awards and media appearances. Hannah has a really lovely creative site. Her site is done in a Windows 95 kind of aesthetic. So you can see over here, if you open up different things, you can see she has her media and appearances. She has talks and stuff and all the different awards and stuff that she has won as well. Someone else I really like is Taylor. Taylor has on her website links to different interviews that she's done, and she just put them there. You can click it to read more or listen. So these are a couple of examples of the ways that you can include your talks or awards or your media appearances. Going to testimonials and clients. I really like the way Dan does his testimonials. So Dan is a freelance designer and a developer. He's a self-taught designer and a developer. He has gotten testimonials from his clients as well as pictures, and he's put them all over his website. He has his testimonials section as a component, so he's able to just grab this one component and put it in different parts or different pages on his websites. So that's a really nice thing that you can do. Matt Farley. Matt has just put some logos of companies that he's worked for. I used to do this as well. It's very effective because when we see these logos, we're like, oh, I know that company. And, there's it adds a lot of social proof to that. So you can do one or the other or both if you wanted to, actually. I used to do a lot of logos, and now I've added some personal testimonials on my site. Okay, part 2. Let's get started. Now that you know what to include, and to recap for your content, the main 3 things are your about, your work, and your content. So you can get started on thinking about how to build your website. The first thing I want to say is use what works for you. Use what you're most comfortable with. If you want to build using WordPress, go for it. Just HTML and CSS, you're just getting started, do it. Use whatever tech is easiest and makes the most sense for you to get your work out there to show the world. Don't be afraid to use templates and then customize them to make your own. I feel like often people are like, oh, I really have to make something unique. I have to design it from scratch. But you know what? These things take a long, long time to do. Literally save yourself, if you're not a designer and you find it quite difficult, save yourself hours of anguish over fonts and colors and all these numerous details that you have to consider if you were to design your portfolio from scratch. Trust me, I spent so long trying to decide between fonts and colors, it's not even funny. But, have a look on the internet, find different websites or different templates that you like, buy some good ones are Forest, Creative Market, Template Monster. You can buy some templates, or you can, have some free download some free ones, and then really customize them to make it your own. And when you're customizing things, you probably have to manipulate a few images as well, like change the colors or saturation, do some cropping. And these are 3 kind of tools that I recommend using if you don't have Photoshop or something like that. You can use Photopea, which is a online Photoshop replica. It's really good. I actually do use it sometimes if I'm in a rush thing. Canva is another good one for making material, and then there's Figma as well. And then I just want to share a small tweet from our good friend Denny Thompson. You can make really great sites with just HTML and CSS. The portfolio site I used to get hired was just HTML and CSS. And let me tell you, the first site, my design site that I used to get hired was just HTML and CSS. My current site is also just HTML and CSS and a bit of JavaScript. There is no shame in using these. So, don't freak out. Don't feel like you have to use Next.js and like Vue and Angular, and maybe not Angular, but don't feel like you have to use all these like latest tech and greatest technology. Use what you're comfortable with. They will get you work. Okay, here's a little bit of a step-by-step to building your portfolio. The first thing you have to do is to register a domain name. So I use NameSilo. There's also Namecheap, Domain, Bluehost, a bunch of other ones. Second thing you have to do, or is a good idea, is to get hosting. Netlify is free. Netlify, Heroku, GitHub Pages, Vercel. Those are other options for developers. You can also go to traditional host sites like Bluehost or HostGator. I used to have my site on, for many, many years on these traditional hosting platforms before I went to Netlify, because it was free and I was paying a lot of money for the hosting. So definitely look into all these different options. And the next thing, after you've registered your domain name, you've got hosting and you've deployed it, share it with the world. It's actually really quite difficult for me to do this sometimes, but you want to tell your friends and family, share it with your social networks. If you don't tell anybody about it, no one's going to find it, right? So share with the world. And then the next thing is continue to iterate. When you get to this section of your portfolio, it's not like you just leave it there like some antique that you can never touch. It's real, it's living. Like you can always touch it and continue to iterate on it. This was an example of a way that I shared my site on Twitter. Like Danny had posted a tweet asking people to share their portfolios so we can have a look, and this is what I did. This was July last year, so it's quite a long ago, and it's just really simple. Like you don't want to feel like you're pushing content out at people. Just do it authentically and the best way that works for you, but do get it out there. Because here's a little another I really like. Imagine you are a scientist, and then you've been working really hard, and maybe in 2 weeks, because you're a genius scientist, you found a vaccine for COVID, but you're really shy and you don't want to talk about it. Hey, guess what? Nobody knows about it and the world will suffer. So, don't be afraid to share your work. There is no better cheerleader than yourself, and you have to advocate yourself. Just do it genuinely and authentically and you'll be fine, okay? But share your work. Okay, part 3. We're going to look at a few bonus tips. The first one is done is better than perfect. So admittedly, I struggle with this one. My portfolios take me forever to design and code, and it was really fortunate that my last one was a bootcamp project, so it had to be done in a week. There's still a lot of things I want to do with it. You know what? It got me my first job in tech. Done is better than perfect. Get it into your head. You can iterate and make it better down the track. The next thing is think about your user experience. People will very often leave bad websites that's very difficult to navigate. Maybe you've had the experience, especially for banking websites, and unfortunately, we kind of just have to tough it out for those. But when you visit a website that's easy to use, it's such a delight. And when potential employers visit your site, they're going to notice that you care about, their experience and these small details. So make it easy for people to read and to navigate and to find your information and work. Responsive design. Okay, I'm really big on these things. Responsive design, accessibility, and performance matters. Make sure your portfolio works on small screens and large ones as well. Not everyone has the privilege of having access to a really big laptop. Make sure your work is accessible to them. Accessibility and performance is linked to that as well. Make sure your images are correctly resized. They're not like 10 megabytes. I've seen websites where you have to download a 10 megabyte photo. That should not ever be the case. Like, make sure you optimize all your images. And the third thing about UX is the KISS principle. KISS stands for keep it simple, stupid. And keep your work simple. Keep your site simple. You don't have to overwhelm everyone with, everything. Like I said, the three things that you should have is your about, your work, and your contact. Just keep it simple. And don't be afraid to show your personality. When people are looking at your website, they're looking to find out about you. Don't be scared. Remember, at the end of the day, people want to hire other people they want to work with. You're not a machine. Don't be afraid to experiment a little bit with your portfolio as well. And the last one is ask for feedback. This is a really, really good way to get better quickly. I know that sometimes criticism can be difficult, but as a designer, I got very used to it. I was constantly asking for constructive feedback, how to make things better. If someone says, "Oh, I'm not sure how to, use the site. There's something I'm struggling with," take note of that and think about how you can mitigate that. It really matters. And asking for feedback, like I said, is the best way to level up very quickly and to get your work to a much better stage. I want you to think of your portfolio as a work in progress. Think of it as this living, breathing document that's ever evolving, growing along with your career. I love Lynn Fisher's portfolio, and this is a great example of this mentality. Every year, she creates a new one. You can see that she started from 2007 all the way up to her most recent iteration of her portfolio. And every year she tries new things. She tries different layouts, different ideas. And you can see that this is an evolution of her career. It's really beautiful. So yeah, think of it as a living, breathing document that grows with your career. Now, maybe you're thinking, okay, this is all great, but it's quite a lot of work to build a portfolio. I just very quickly want to talk about 4 small things other ways that you can use to showcase yourself outside of building a portfolio. The first one is, we talked about this, if you don't want to have a blog on your actual site, use a blogging network. Obviously, I'm going to recommend Hashnode, but there's also Medium and TO as well for developers. Have a really nice GitHub profile. This is another way to stand out and get your work out there and seen. Another one is CodePen. You can show your work and show your code and your thinking on CodePen, and this will get shared around very easily. A fourth one I'm going to talk about is Polywork. This is very new, so I'll mention it very briefly later. But know that all of these 4 sections or examples are not a replacement for full portfolios. They are supplementary, or you can get started with them. Okay, let's look at blogs. Here are some examples of some blogs that a couple of people have done. This is his Hashnode blog, and this is Devon's Hashnode blog. He's a self-taught developer, whereas Skye has a lot more experience, so he's writing a lot more technical information and articles. As for Devon, he's sharing a lot of what he's learned about his resources and everything. So great ways to, show the world what you're thinking about, the things you're interested in, and getting your work out there. Next one is your GitHub profile. I love what Kirk has done with his GitHub profile. He's, okay, look at that. He's added all the skills that he's used at the top, all the different logos of the technology that he's used. He's written quite a really nice about section as well, that he's personalized it with, mostly I'm just trying to do good work and practice kindness in my habits. So he's added something very personal there. And there's examples of all his code. It's great. Kirk told me that he's took a lot of iteration to get to where this is. He said it's slowly but surely coming together into something I like. Definitely didn't look like this 6 months ago. So, we all got to start somewhere. You don't have to get it right the first time, but continue to iterate on it. The next one is CodePen. So Sarah's done some amazing, amazing work on CodePen. She does a lot, they do a lot of CSS art where they make a very photorealistic pictures. So they've put it on CodePen and it's there for the world to see. So I recommend checking out their CodePen if you have a chance. And someone else is Elizabeth. Elizabeth isn't on Twitter, but she really likes Pokemon. She does a lot more animation and she does a few different sites as well where she's going into some UI that she's experimenting with and some UX and some interesting animation stuff. So Sarah does a lot more CSS art and Elizabeth does some animation and everything. Both very, very strong CodePen portfolios, I almost want to say. So yeah, CodePen's a very great tool to use. The next one, the last one I'm going to talk about is Polywork. Polywork is a new platform, I would say, that's just coming out. It's a way to express that, we're more than just our job title, and it's a way to express it here. It's like we do many different kind of things, and we can be a multiplayer where our professional path could be a lot more colorful. Here's an example from a developer, Pat. So you can see that right now he's working on his Epic React course by Kent Dobbs. And you can see over here, he has a timeline of all the different things that he's been doing or has done. This is a really great way to show people what you've done. Again, it's not like I said, it's not a replacement for a portfolio, but it adds to it. And it definitely helps with your social branding and your online presence as well. And maybe here are some faces that you might recognize. Cassidy and Elise Spittle, who just gave a talk last week as well. So they're on Polywork as well. I do have to say though, Polywork right now is currently not live. They're just on a wait list. So they'll be on like wait list for a little while. And yeah, before they go live. So wrapping up, here's a recap, homework and Q&A. So the first thing to remember is portfolios are a way to show the world who you are, what you're about, and to stand out against other people. Think of it as a living, breathing, ever-evolving compilation of materials that showcases your personality and your work, and it grows with your career. You use your portfolio to get work, to increase your personal branding and online, and have fun. Even though it's frustrating, you're learning, and it's a really great digital asset. Next one, the 3 must-haves in a portfolio: your work, your about, your work, and your contact. And then the other nice-to-haves: testimonial, companies that you've worked with, skills, tools, and technology that you've used, blogs, your technical writing, talks, appearances, awards, and yeah, those are the 3 things. The other things, sorry. And then to the next one is build with whatever tech that you're comfortable with. Like, doesn't really matter. Don't let gatekeepers stop you from doing anything. Don't be afraid of using templates, but make sure you customize them. Make sure to think about your user experience as well. Make the experience for your user great. And some other alternative for devs is Hashnode is very highly recommended for blogging. Have an awesome GitHub profile. CodePen and similar sites where people can see your code is a really nice alternative. Polywork, this is invite only for several months, but it's coming there. And now for your homework. So I want you to get started on your portfolio. And what I would like you to do for homework is to write 1 to 3 paragraphs about yourself. Choose a great profile pic that you can use, and then include one of your favorite projects. And about this in a blog on Hashnode. It can be something that you can then add to your actual portfolio afterwards. And as a bonus, I dare you to share this on Twitter for accountability. You tag me, I will make sure to read everything and tag it with Hashnode Bootcamp as well. So yeah, this is your homework for this particular section. And that's it. Thank you. I hope people enjoyed that and learned something great or fun or interesting.
We absolutely did. Thank you so much. I definitely learned a lot from this session. And I also agree with some of the interesting points you made. And I believe that if we all collectively try to integrate points into our portfolio or create portfolios if we don't have any, it's definitely going to help our careers in one way or the other. So thank you so much for
absolutely
having this session. All right, cool. So we're going to move into answering questions. So I'll read it out for you when then you answer. So try to answer as many as possible before time runs out. Yeah. So the first question is it advisable to use an emoji or graphic characters resembling you instead of an actual photo?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I did mention that very briefly. If you're not comfortable with putting a photo of yourself, obviously that might be the best one, but you got to start somewhere. Use an avatar. That's completely fine. A lot of people do actually do this as well. And you see on Twitter, some people have avatars instead of their photo, and they get recognized by that. So yeah, why not?
Yeah, that's true. I mean, like you said, anything is fine. It depends on what you're most comfortable with. Yeah. All right, cool. The next question is, okay, for a personal portfolio, do you recommend creating a unique page, like a landing page, or creating multiple pages?
Okay, so I've experimented with both, and really so many of my advice is going to be like, it's really up to you and what you feel like. So I would recommend looking at sites that you like and then seeing what you like about them and why you like them. For my WordPress portfolio, I had multiple pages, but for this, I had it all in just one long page. I would say to start as a beginner, like maybe just do one page. It's probably a lot easier than making multiple pages.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I absolutely agree with that. All right. Next question is, can you please recommend ways to get some inspiration for personal projects? And okay, so this person is pretty much saying, where can I find inspiration for my project so that when I build it, it stands out?
Sorry, where you can get some inspiration?
Inspiration, yes, for personal projects that will help our portfolio stand out.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I did have some examples of some. Okay, so the thing is, there's not a lot of different projects that you can do. The way to make it stand out is to give it your own twist. So, for example, if you're making a personal website, and say you really love dogs, for example, or make a website about dogs and make it your own. Like one of the first things that I did when I was learning HTML, CSS properly was I made a dating website for my cat. So just make it
interesting.
Yeah, add your personality to the projects, like a simple CRUD, like I said, or like a something. Just add your personality to it. And for inspiration, look at sites like Dribble and what other people have done. Take some of the feedback from it and what you like about them.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really think the building a dating app for your cat is quite interesting. Like that's on another level.
Yeah.
Okay, next question is...
My cat's too single, by the way.
Oh, wow. We should definitely set your cat up. So if you have any cat here, please indicate in the chat so that we can set your cat up and Annie's cat, please. Is it he or she?
It's he.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
He can't remain single after today. We definitely need to do something about it.
He's also in lockdown, so his life's tough.
Oh, wow.
Right now.
I can imagine. I mean, it's even tough for us humans. I can imagine how tough it is for him. but it's going to be fine. It's going to be fine.
Mhm.
All right, cool. The next question: do you have any tips for your backend developer portfolio? I think that's very interesting because I mean it's very easy for front-end developers to shine with their portfolios, right? Because you're basically saying UI. So for a backend developer who does not have experience with like front-end, how do they make their portfolio stand out?
Mm-hmm. So for that one, I would highly recommend that you choose a template that you like or a couple templates. Choose templates that speak to your personality. Like, don't even bother to design. Like, don't even bother thinking about it. Just go online, find templates that you like, and use those templates. A lot of backend developers do that, and you do want to have something that looks good because what people are going to look at. And GitHub profile, Kirk's GitHub profile is amazing. Like, have a strong GitHub profile, and also for your portfolio itself. Make it maybe focus a bit more about me so that people, like I said, the portfolio is to show people who you are and what you care about and the skills that you have. It's not just to show your work, but it's to get people to connect with you and potential recruiters. But yeah, don't design, find a nice template, use it, and then just fill in all the different sections.
All right, that makes sense. Okay, try to answer like, let's say 3 or 4 more questions before we end because we're running out of time. So the next question is about you talked about creating like an about page to your portfolio, right?
Yes.
So this is what this question is referring to. So a person is saying, regarding this page, is it necessary to add content about my present work or my future job availability?
It's up to you. For your about, you can do both. There is no set rules. If you want to talk about your current work, I think that's what it is. Your current work, and your clients are comfortable with it, then definitely do it. And for future availability, like when someone's looking at your site and they want to hire you, it's really useful for them to have the information, right? Like they're like, oh, okay, this person is great, and I know exactly when I can work with them. So why not? So I would say that's my answer for that one.
Yeah, makes sense. All right, so 3 more questions to go. This one is: would you recommend adding personal social links like your Instagram link, for instance, to your portfolio?
Yeah, this is a great question. So I used to have, I can't remember if I took my Instagram link off or not. I think I took my LinkedIn off actually, but it's up to you if you feel comfortable. If you want people looking at your website and you want to show them this part of your personality and you think it would be useful, then do it. Even if you think that it's not going to be useful, but you want eyes on your work and to see your stuff, like do it as well. So I would say definitely it's up to you, but make it work for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. I think it's just like you said, it's try to think about what you want someone to see, right? What perspective you're trying to pass. So my Instagram, for instance, is not tech related, so I'm not sure I'd want to add it to my portfolio, except I want someone to see that side of me. It all depends on what you're comfortable with.
Exactly. My Instagram is also personal as well. It's just very small there, so.
All right, that makes sense. All right, second to the last question. About the portfolio layout, do you have some advice to share with us, like in terms of using grid layout, sections, nav bars, footers, and so on?
Okay, for the nav bar, I highly if we're thinking about accessibility and making a good user experience, it's recommended that as much as possible to show your links when you can, so that people can easily click on it before they have to go to a hamburger menu. So that's the one tip for the nav bar. For layout, think about things like spinning. You don't want to cram everything together. Think about like the flow of your page and add breathing space basically, so that people as they look, they're like, okay, this is one section, this is another section, and they can kind of go through it that way. Whether like for the technologies, whether you use grid or flexbox, it's really up to you. Was there something else in that question about that as well?
Sorry, let me check. I think so the person said grid, flexbox, I think footers, right?
Sorry, footers, the last one?
Footers.
Okay. Yeah. Footer, a simple footer is fine. I just have my footer is just like, date and made by Annie. But other people like Dan, for example, his footer, I think, has extra links that is like similar to what his has at the top. So it links to his work and other things. So that's another way to do it as well. You can have like an extended footer if you have lots of things that you'd like to share.
All right, so final question is, what recommendations can you share with us regarding deciding on which template to use, right? Should we add some attribution to the creator or copyright or license when we use those templates?
So I like to think about this one as, okay, so the first thing is if you buy a template, no, you absolutely do not have to do that. You don't have to talk about like copyright or give attribution unless you really want to. But you bought it to use for a professional or personal project, and it's part of the terms and conditions that it's yours. If you are inspired by other people, for example, and say you looked at different websites and you want to, like give them a bit of a kickback, then it's a really nice thing to do. I would never just copy someone else's page, because you're gonna like come across the pages and people might be able to tell. So like if it's very similar, then like definitely I would like recommend it, but try as much as you can. I really highly encourage you to make the portfolio your own and mix it up to add your own personal touch to it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think it's very easy to spot when someone copies another person's portfolio, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, even if you have to, it's ideal to still put in something about you, like your own personality. So change a couple of things and not make you look very obvious that you copied that person. And yeah, even though you change those things, it's okay to maybe give some attribute or support to the person as well. So that's
definitely. And another way to think about it as well is like if you look at several portfolios, like take notes of what it is about those specific portfolios that you like, and then you might to see a pattern of things that you like, and then you can work with those things, and you have building blocks for your own portfolio design.
That's a very good idea, to be honest. It makes you, find inspiration from different people's designs, but you're not necessarily copying them. I think that's fantastic.
I think there's no need to reinvent the wheel.
Exactly. Absolutely no need. All right, that's all the questions we'll answer for today. So sorry for not answering other questions. We've definitely run out of time. But thank you so much, Annie, for handling this session and answering these questions as well. I definitely learned a lot, and I bet everyone who attended learned a lot as well.
I hope so.
All right, thank you all for joining. Catalin, Catalin is joining now to do the final.
Yep, here I am again. Thank you, Annie, a lot for your talk. Anyone, please, let's say a big thank you to Annie in the chat. The talk was awesome and super useful for someone like me who's a backend developer and super at designing. And I also need to build a portfolio, so it was a nice talk. I really enjoyed it. Like I said, you can follow Annie on Twitter. I pasted the link in the chat a few times. Also, the next speaker is Samson Godi, who's going to talk about growing with open source, and that is on Friday, this Friday. Before closing off, please share your experience with the bootcamp on social media with the Hashnode Bootcamp hashtag, because you have a chance to win a t-shirt. Once again, thank you, Annie, for your talk. It was awesome.
Thanks for having me, and thanks everyone. Good luck with your portfolios. Share your links.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.